Good morning, everyone. This is Luda Kopikina with GAI Insights, where we rate AI news, seven or so articles every day as essential, important, or optional, saving you lots of time in your busy day. We have a great crew today. John is back from vacation. Paul is back from California, correct, Paul? Yes, and Adam and Ankash. Adam is in Australia at 11:30 p.m. So thank you, Adam. All right, let's start with the first article, Ankash.
Okay, so the first one that we have for today comes from Siemens and ThyssenKrupp and how AI is helping them bridge skilling gaps in manufacturing.
Yeah, I have this one. Okay, so this is a very interesting article talking about a big global actually shortage in engineering skills and the fact that very knowledgeable folks, especially on manufacturing, in manufacturing companies, are retiring. I was talking to a friend of mine who is a CEO of a smaller company, like 300 million, and he essentially said, all of my older guys are retiring and I'm not sure what I'm going to do. So it's a big issue. So Siemens teamed up with Microsoft Azure and built an industrial copilot specifically for manufacturing. And then this article talks about how they put it I'm not sure I pronounce it right, Thessencraft, Croft, I think. Anyway, but there's little dollar numbers, cost or ROI. So it's a good article, but optional in my book. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I thought I was going to rate it optional as well. But what an interesting area. I mean, this whole notion of knowledge transfer, knowledge capture. This has been around. This idea of knowledge capture has certainly been around for decades, if not since the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. And here it's as corny as it sounds on this thing, but right here from the beginning, I was only speaking to it in English, but today I discovered it speaks German quite well. That whole notion of we're in dialogue with our knowledge base and our machines and everything, that's fundamentally changing the economics of businesses. I think this particular case doesn't add a lot to our insight, so I give it an optional, but this issue I think is fundamental.
Paul, Adam, okay with optional, or should we go?
Yeah, it was. It didn't. I agree with you, Luda. It didn't get much into the ROI or the financials. Additionally, it didn't get too deep into how they leveraged OpenAI or how they actually aggregated all their data or built and trained on top of it. So a few good use cases in here. Nothing particularly new. Writing code, helping junior engineers understand code and provide explanations, which is that knowledge share and knowledge transfer, and then really chatbot assistance. A few pretty common use cases. So I probably had it as optional also.
Okay. Optional it is. Next one, Ankaj.
The next one comes from Google. Google has rolled out its Gemini AI-powered video presentation app.
Okay, Adam, what do you think about it?
I think this is optional. All in all, if people haven't been paying attention, Google has just continued to roll out more and more capabilities with Gemini. I hope people are at least aware of that. This shouldn't be any reason to necessarily raise a flag, particularly for this use case. It's something that's very cool, very useful. Basically, the Gemini now can help you make a video, so it can put in stock footage, it can write a script, it can do AI voiceovers. Sort of like the Notebook LM thing where it could create the podcast. So it's some nice capabilities that they're offering, but nothing really too much on an enterprise level necessarily, or that's really that earth shattering. There's other companies that are competing in the space, so I did have it as optional.
Paul, what do you think?
Yeah, it's optional. I mean, I think the plan of record should be that the AI leader is expecting all the AI vendors to continue to improve, and the trend line's going up here. And I think, Adam, you were highlighting that it's an expected trend line improvement here and not earth-shattering, so optional.
Okay.
I was going to give it an optional as well. The one thing is, about 20 years ago, I wrote a short blog post about why every company needed their own newsroom to basically deal with social media. I think every company is going to need their own video production facility, because people, unless you can communicate internally and externally with pretty good videos in a TikTok kind of world, I think you're going to lose your audience, whether it's your employees or your customers.
Yeah, John, I couldn't agree with that more. I mean, we're even internally for our own company, we're working on our short video factory and capability, because it's such an effective tool for communication to our external audience. But imagine training, back in knowledge capture back at that manufacturing firm we were just talking about here. So
yeah.
Yeah, and there's an accumulation of these tools, right, across the board. So it's an interesting value proposition to create a studio with all these tools combined to help you do this. Yeah. Okay.
Well,
though.
And John, just to riff a little bit here, it's not just a news studio; it's a knowledge studio. So
Yeah.
what we're doing is codifying and communicating knowledge in the most effective way, and we're finding that is LL-driven knowledge bases and increasingly videos in a TikTok world.
Yeah.
That's an interesting thought, Paul, because it's not just like production of one video. It's a progression. Yeah.
Well, no, but go back to Siemens here. All right, so I've got 150 engineers on board at Siemens across 2 plants here. What better way to onboard, educate people than with short videos that complements 5,000 pages of PDF stuff that I put them through, and boring as hell LMS channels out there. So I think the learning transformation that's going on in schools applies directly to onboarding. And I think video crosses all that. Why not have short videos for teaching history in high school?
Yeah, and the thing is that I think it's Autodesk's motto is read, understand, write. I mean, the other thing that's different here is not only do you have authoring tools, but you're going to be able to take samples of reality and mix them into any number of things. So the logic of creation is really getting changed.
Yeah, we're going to talk about it with robots and stuff a little bit later. So that's
Sure.
Totally true. Okay, sounds good, but optional it is for now. All right, Ankash, let's go to the next one.
The next one comes from Forbes and talks about how large behavior models are surpassing large language models to create AI that walks and talks.
Yeah, behavioral models, robotics. Okay, so John, what do you think about that one?
Yeah, I mean, I think I was going to give it an optional. The whole notion of large behavioral models, as opposed to just large language models, yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, they're different models of reality, and the idea. I mean, I think of it all as just a set of objects that have different learning mechanisms and different capabilities. I think Alan Kay kind of had it when he invented object-oriented programming. This particular thing, I can understand why Lance has so many books, because there's fluffy and there's super fluffy and there's super duper fluffy. From a writing perspective, the density, the information to word density here is probably the lowest I've seen in a lot of things. But so it's I to be less snarky, I really hate the writing style, but I think he makes a good point. I think it's optional. It doesn't have any particular deep analysis or facts that would drive it to important or essential for me.
Adam, after a week of rest, John's snarky tank is all the way full, ready to be put to use.
You betcha. You betcha. I'm in full snark mode.
Well, I am with John, actually. I was reading this article, and it takes a long time to say one thing. But really, for people who are not into robotics, do not necessarily understand how you train robots, what are the general purpose robots that folks are working on, right? So this goes step by step through the cooking thing and this thing and explains it and does a reasonable job at it. So if you are interested in figuring that out, how robots are trained, this might be useful. Very top level, but optional, right? Everybody, Adam, optional.
Just to pile on the snark, right? I mean, a language model does language, and a behavior model does behavior, and an image model does images. It's like you can actually train the models on different things, and they can be trained on those things.
So you're saying, yeah, okay.
Yeah, this 2,000 words could be 200, and I bet I could get it into 20.
This is not. But as I I said, educational content, maybe. All right, optional it is. Let's go to the next one, Ankash.
Next one comes from AWS, and it talks about using Amazon Q.
Yeah. Okay, an interesting article. What do you think, Adam?
I've given it another optional. It's a singular use case on a singular platform. Basically, they made a chatbot to service other business units internally to help answer questions about their cloud center of excellence. So yeah, it's a great use case. It's nothing new. It's almost more of a marketing piece from Amazon about Amazon.
Right, but the fascinating thing is the impact that they received. When they put out this bot, the first week, the number of cases going to humans was down by 75%, and then the next week another 75. So this was quite impactful, I think, for them, and it's worth of note. But yeah, we've seen similar cases. Optional, I guess.
I could get to important in the sense of, the IT departments. I think the thing that is kind of interesting is this is a full-on reconfiguration of the IT department. Not only in terms of what they need to serve the enterprise, but how they serve the enterprise, what they're going to do with old code. I just think that if there are any CIOs out there that aren't, rethinking, just every process, every interaction. It's not just on the software productivity side, the notion that this put in governance and control systems and things like that, I thought was pretty interesting. I could go for an important.
Yeah, I could back important as well, because they were so swamped that they had to do it. Usually IT departments are not very proactive, sorry. But in this case, they were so so much in the blocking the progress, in essence, so they had to do it, right? But the impact was quite startling, actually. What do you think, Paul, Adam?
Well, Lucinda's got a comment. Luda, do you see her comment I just pushed?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, if someone's building on Amazon, specifically Q Business, I can see why this would be useful for them. It's nothing you can't do with Microsoft Copilot Studio. It's nothing you can't do with Gemini. It's not even something new. It's a story about one of the very first use cases for generative AI, specifically on Amazon. So the concept in general and the numbers here, even if I were on Microsoft and I were trying to justify an internal chatbot and a business case, to your point, Luda, this could help really justify the value proposition.
The value.
For that reason, I could consider important, but this specific article, unless you're in Lucinda's case, I think would be optional.
Okay, so what do you think, Paul?
I'm going to defer to the group. Big disagreements here. I don't have a strong view. Yeah.
All right, important it is.
Great. Chalk comes out. Love it. The Russian chalk.
Okay. All right. Next one.
Feel the power. Yes.
Okay, the next one comes from Prudential, and it talks about how they are using Google's MedPalm model for medical claims.
They're really not. So they're talking about doing it, right? So they are thinking of putting it of all of their places in Singapore and Malaysia for some reason, not explained in the article, and hoping to get quite a bit of value out of it. So in my book, it's totally optional. What do you think?
Yeah, my guess was it was Singapore and Malaysia because the regulatory regimes might be a little easier, but I don't know that for a fact.
Yeah, this wasn't mentioned. Adam, what do you think? Optional?
Yeah, it is. It is optional as well.
Okay, yeah. Optional.
One thing, it's definitely optional, but it is yet another article that's going into our ever-growing use case database that Parika's working on. So we're continuing to get a lot of interest in that, feedback on it, and we're really making a lot of improvements to get an industry-specific, representative sample of here are the use cases, here's what technology they're using it, and here's a link to the source document that we think would really going to help AI leaders justify budgets as they go and find use cases as they go into 2025 planning.
Yeah, I also think that I think with the election of Trump and his his statements, if you look at his history and also the analyses of and what he said and so forth, I think he's going to go toward a world of much more bilateral deal making as opposed to multilateral policy making, which I think is going to radically drive up interest in sovereign AI and local capability. And so I think these international use cases are going to be more and more important, because I don't think we're going to see the emergence of a kind of Western democratic led regulatory regime and access regime. So I think a lot of countries are going to say, no, we need to, and a lot of companies are going to say, no, we need to own our own intelligence.
Yeah, it's certainly going that way. Okay, optional it is then. Let's go next. Ankaj, please.
The last one that we have comes from ByteDance, and it talks about X-Portrait 2, a highly expressive portrait animation.
What do you think about this, Paul? It's really amazing, isn't it?
I will note there are no white guys in this thing, which is kind of interesting.
Well, John, what do you think?
Yeah, I thought that was very interesting. I had it optional. It's yet another a breathtaking capability.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this would have been essential a little while ago. I think that in terms of, I think there are certain things that really drive adoption, and I think articulated facial expression. It's like, when I used to do studio arts, somebody who can really draw faces and eyes well is a whole nother level than somebody who can't. And that's what this is for this. I mean, you can look at a lot of artists who kind of duck drawing faces and duck drawing eyes and things, expressions. This micro expression stuff, I think, it's just one feature, but it's such a critical feature.
John, it's really interesting. On my 6-hour flight back from San Francisco, I watched a little bit of this Mad Max movie that's a trilogy and early on. And the director there made a purpose thing to have very little dialogue and communicate emotion just from the eyes back and forth. And it was very different, very effective and very powerful. And it's a very big action drama movie here. So
Adam, you experimented. How is it versus the competition? This is stunning.
So the one I'm familiar with, which is, if you scroll down a little bit, you'll see they have the examples. Next image, where they're comparing X-Portrait, which is their first version, with ours, as they're calling it, which is X-Portrait 2, and then Runway Act 1, which is the one that I've used before. So it's as you'd expect. The latest one to market is slightly higher resolution, more accurate expressions. But I consider this a step change in a rapidly evolving market.
Okay. All right. Optional it is then. All right. We are at the end of our articles today. So, Ankaj, do you have the board?
Anything about the Learning Lab tonight, Paul?
Oh, yeah. Paul?
the Learning Lab tonight is a discussion on detecting and this current state of real fakes. We have a AI vendor that's a leader there, and it's quite exciting, important space. And I think I was one that thought it'd be much bigger role in the election this year, and it wasn't. But the capabilities around it continue to grow, and understanding what the current state of the art is one reason to attend the Learning Lab. It's 7 Eastern tonight.
And Paul, if I'll be allowed again, I'd love to jump in and do another Adam AI adventure. I was thinking I could take John's article on the GAI Insights webpage, as well as the YouTube video about Own Your Own Intelligence, and show how you can use Notebook LM to make a podcast about it.
Yeah, that's
awesome.
That would be awesome.
Great. Okay. Unfortunately, I won't be able to join you guys tonight, but
you'll be there in spirit.
Okay, so we have. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Done.
All right, so we have one important and the rest are optional for the Veterans Day holiday, essentially. So it's not surprising. Nobody's putting big news on the holiday, but one important.
Well, one other thing I just announced, Luda, we've been doing a lot of work over the weekend with John Warner for the MIT Davos Day. And he's got 2 or 3 major sponsors of that. Own Your Own Intelligence is going to be one of the topics, or Dr. John is going to be one of the speakers here. But it's interesting talking to some of the vendors of how critical sovereign AI and company owning your intelligence. It's really it's coming to the highest level. So the vendors and the speakers are seeing. So it's going to be really exciting. Exciting conference, January 22nd, which is 72 days from now.
And Paul, you want to say anything about the buyer's guide or anything?
The buyer's guide, we are on track to have it released November 26th. Lots of interest in it. And we are finalizing our first 2x2. So we are going to come out with our own 2x2, and it'll be defensible, and it'll be our first guest. It's an incredibly fluid market here. But look forward to the release. The report's going to be $500. It includes this report, update next year, and a monthly summary of it. And we're having a launch webinar at noon on November 26th.
Yeah, please join us, and we'll include the link in the newsletter. Please join us. Okay, well, thank you all. That concludes our news for today. Bye.
Bye.